All right, testing 1, 2, 3. All right, so I'm gonna start with telling what are the changes I made before the live. The only change I made, actually, I think there are two changes I've made in this project here before I begin. All right, so the first change I made was the camera. So as you can see, if I get the rifle, as you can see when I aim, this camera position, I think it's a lot better because you can actually see where the rifle is aiming at. Of course, we have those bugs where we're going to be able to fix later, but I pretty much like this kind of aim and angle that we have right now. And I think it's pretty much the same as in The Last of Us 2. You have, when you aim, the camera gets really close to the character and we can really see where we're aiming. Other than this, when you just aim, but the characters just can disturb a little bit. Cannot have that nice vision that we have right here. So if you want to do that, I'm gonna teach you how you can do that right now. So pretty much, if you're using the game animation sample, the 5.5 version, we already have the gameplay camera. So if you double click on that, you're going to be able to see, it's going to bring you to this window right here, and we can pretty much decide how the camera is going to, we can pretty much decide the angle of the camera, the field of view, the forward damping factor, lateral and vertical, all those things. And if you go to the default level and pick up the rifle, and as you can see, we have 3 modes as Epic Games has released for us. So you have the camera style close, and then balanced, and then far away. And the one we're using right now is the close, not actually balanced, as you can see right there. And we're going to basically go to the balanced aim and go to the camera rig prefab. And then here you're going to select the exact offset as I have right here. I have reset the forward damping factor and lateral damping factor to 0. The field of view you can choose, I think maybe 90 would be great, would be better. Let me just see if that's going to be a little bit better. Yeah, that's going to be a little bit better, but then we're going to have to, change other settings. And the offset in here, I think if you type it to be 60 with the field of view 80, I think that's going to be better. let's go. The camera is going to be a little bit closer, and you're going to have a nicer view, a nicer field of view when you're aiming with the character. But that's just up to you. I'm just going to let it to be a 70. I think it's not going to cause distortion. Maybe if you're playing as a competitive game, if you're playing this as a competitive game, you can set that to be that value, but it's all up to you. Now, the other thing I've made is the speed of how the character picks up the weapon. As you can see, the character can pick up the weapon a lot faster right now. So if I press F, the character can holster and pick up the weapon a lot faster. And how I've done this was, if you go to the weapon pickup, and if you go to the animation, which is inside our macro, which is called holster weapon macro, as you can see, here we have the holster pistol animation. And we're also going to comment about the weapon pickup as well, which is inside the sandbox character. If you go to the animation graph, we have the state machine only for the weapon pickups. Now in here, as you can see, I've added the play rate to be 1.13 to be a little bit faster. If you don't have this input pin in here, you can just go to the play rate in the settings. You can click on the blunt space, go to the settings, play rate, and here you're going to be able to expose a pen. Mine here is already selected, but if it's not, you can just click on the pen in here and then expose a pen so that you can edit this value directly in the blunt space. So mine I put to be 1.13. It's not going to cause any issues so far, but if you place a higher value, maybe it's not going to look good. Now in the sandbox character, we have this animation here, which is the holster pistol. If you click on the montage and click on the sequence, as you can see here, the rate scale, I've changed it to be 1.23, so the character can holster a lot faster now. So that's pretty much the changes I've made. All right. So now, as you can see, in this project, we already have the pickup system. And the way it works is that if you pick up a pistol, it's all gonna work. So if you try to pick up a rifle, the character is going to holster the pistol first. And also I have to comment about this, the fit correction. I've set the fit correction to be 1.2 on the play rate, so just remember that. And the start time of the fit correction is going to be 0.3 so that we don't delay on that. And I've set the default slot instead of assigning it to the default slot, I've assigned it to the spine so that the character can only do the necessary correction in order to make the character to fix the fit, to the fit correction. Gory Schenker said, "Hi bro, the game development job have a scope? Do you mean what are the things that are going to be implemented? Or the systems?" What game development job are you talking about? All right. Now in this live stream, we're going to work with the weapon equips. So as soon as you press on F, you're able to equip the pistol in this case. But if you press Q, you can equip the weapon. This one is working. And if you press Q again, as you can see, you can pick up the pistol and you can aim freely. Now, of course, you can also drop the weapon. You can also pick it up again, aim, drop the weapon, or equip. So you can press Q to equip. And now if you want to, pick up the rifle, as you can see, it's working. So if I want to drop the rifle, or equip the rifle, I can. Now if I press Q again, I'm going to equip the rifle. But later you're going to have to work on the inventory system as well. So if I press Q, as you can see, we have a problem in there, because as soon as I press Q, I pick up the rifle that is in the ground, and not the pistol that is on the characters, the holster. So as soon as I press Q, we have a bug there. So we're going to fix that right now. So to fix that bug, I think it's going to be pretty simple. Is it going to be multiplayer? Multiplayer, I think we can add multiplayer features after we finish with everything, because I only know how to do the locomotion part. Are you using C++? No, only blueprints. So if I want to simulate this and press Q again, something happens in here in the EquipWeapon macro, so we're going to take a look at that. And as we can see, we have a equip animation. I'm just going to name this animation notified to be equip. And then here, as soon as I play that animation, immediately what we have is to identify the current weapon type. But firstly, we need to identify which weapon we want to holster first. So I have the information if we have, if you want to holster the rifle, or so you need to have that information. What kind of weapon do you want to holster to equip in this case? So as this is the equip weapon macro, we need to also include the type of weapon we want to equip. Now I'm going to add a new input in here, and this is going to be equip rifle, a pretty simple boolean, doesn't need that much. So we also have EquipPistol. All right. So in here, we can actually choose what do you want to equip. So if you press Q to holster, and the character has the pistol 1H holstered, we want to equip the pistol because he has the pistol holstered. But if he has the rifle holstered, then we can equip the rifle, not the pistol. So just by doing that, we can also, of course, going to have to do the other checks. So in here, we can use that information of equip rifle or equip pistol to place in here. So if you want to equip the pistol, I think this is really not necessary to have identified the current weapon type because we already know what kind of weapon we're dealing with. So I'm just going to delete that and choose a branch. Actually, I'm just going to choose 2 branches. And one branch is going to identify if you want to equip the rifle or the pistol. So if you want to equip the rifle, we're going to update the state that the character is equipping the rifle. So in this case, it's this one. So let's just go ahead and just update those values as soon as we play the animation. So this is a boolean that it just tells us that we are holstering the rifle. I think this is not really used anywhere. Let me just see, find references by name. If you try to, yeah, we're not using it anywhere. It's just a state information that we could probably use later. All right, so in here we have this code right here. So that part is done. Now let's check the other parts. So as soon as the animation is blend out, as soon as it starts to blend out, we execute another identify current weapon type, which is not really necessary again. So we basically update the holster state based on what we've already equipped. So I'm just going to delete this and just going to update the values to off as soon as it start, as soon as the animation ends or blends out. Now in here, we deal with the interrupted state. Now I'm just going to delete this because we're not going to deal with this state right now. And the most important part of this code is the onNotify begin, because as we have the animation notify window, we have the starting point set up, and this is the exact moment of where the weapon is going to be equipped, which means it's going to be attached on the character's hand, from the holster to the hand, right? So if you go to that, inside of that collapsed graph, you're going to be able to see that we have all the code that's very much similar to what we have in the holster weapon macro. If you go ahead and go inside the collapsed graph, so not that, the function to holster the pistol, it pretty much looks this. It looks similar, but it's not similar. If you take the comparison, it's different. So what I'm going to do is just copy and paste all this to do the comparison. So I'm just going to go ahead to the equip action and just paste that in there. So as you can see, the first thing, so this is the detach phase, and this is the equip phase. So it's pretty much almost the same thing. It's just that the slot is different. So what I'm going to do is try to copy this code here and go ahead and go back to that equip. Let me just see. To that equip collapse graph. I'm just going to delete this. And what I'm going to do is just, if you're equipping the pistol, of course, we're going to have to identify that first. So just going to copy this and select this to go to the blend out. And as soon as we equip the weapon, we're going to paste this in here. And if we're messing with the pistol or rifle, I'm just going to copy and paste and change the reference. Instead of the pistol, it's going to be the rifle, weapon rifle. And I'm going to plug this to the branch. And I'm just going to remove all this part in here because it's not really necessary as we have the same code. So I think we just need to make sure that we have to select the right equip socket. As you can see, it's equip, so it's equipping here as well. And in here we have the equip and holster. Holster, yeah. Okay. I think we can call this, of course I'm going to have to test it out, but I think we can call this one of these, what is this called? One of those input keys, input pins to be attach socket. I think that's going to make more sense instead of just holster socket. But I'm going to have to test it out to see if it's going to work. So if you go inside that function, as you can see right here, we have only the holster socket. And that's the only socket we have. So instead of plugging in the holster socket, I'm going to plug in the equip socket in the holster socket instead. And I'm going to do the same thing for the right one below for the pistol. So if we want to equip the pistol, we're going to run the function to, we're going to select the right reference of the pistol in order to holster the pistol. And for the rifle, it's going to be the same thing. And for this, we can delete because we're not going to use this anymore. And these are the final states. So I guess we can just plug that in. It could be the first ones that we could. They want to. So in case if you're equipping that rifle, this is going to be updated like this. So the has rifle holster is going to be updated to be disabled, the boolean, and the other boolean called has rifle in hand is going to be updated to be true. So that means that the rifle is going to be on the character's hands. So that makes sense. And I'm just going to update the other one. So in here, like this. And then finally, we're going to connect the outputs in case you want to have an output pin, you know, in the collapse graph. And if you want, you can set the collapse graph color to be black. I think I like this color too much, very much, because it turns out the collapse graph becomes a little bit more alive. All right, so now let's try it out to see if it's going to work. So if you press the F to equip the pistol is going to work. If we want to holster, it's going to work. Now equip. All right, holster. We also have to fix that issue where sometimes the character just holds the poles of the character of the pistol. It's a little bit glitchy sometimes, but that's fine for now. And now if you want to equip the rifle, you can press Q. As you can see. Now if I want to... Now when I press Q here, as we have two types of weapons, it's going to be a little bit tricky to manage those because we don't have an inventory system or a weapon selector chooser, you know, to choose which weapon you want to be equipping. In the Last of Us, you can have a pre-selection, a selection HUD of the type of weapon you want to choose. By just, you know, deciding, so let's say if I press 1, you want to equip the weapon, the pistol. If I press 2, you can equip the rifle. I guess we can work like this. Flumfire said, "Hi there, sorry I haven't joined your live devlog much. Seems so much boolean there. Is there a specific reason why you didn't use enumerators for the goals that you're trying to achieve?" Yeah, not yet, because I'm still developing this, as this is just a prototype yet. As you can see, we have a lot of booleans in here. But I'm planning to solve all the move all those booleans and convert them to enumerators. So I'm just going to use enumerators instead of booleans. But that's going to be for later. I'm not worried about, you know, having too much booleans right now, because this is just a test system that we're just going to be testing the devlogs. Perhaps in the devlog 25, we're going to be able to organize this a little bit better and remove the booleans and add the enumerators instead. But for now, that's pretty much okay and fine to me. I think they don't bother me too much. And I still gotta think which values and like how many enumerators I have to create in order to remove at least most of the booleans. So as soon as the code is working well, I think there's not much to worry right now. So hold on. As one said, if it works, it works. Yeah. Of course, you gotta make the code maintainable and readable and at least organizable, so that I don't have problems later. So I think we can do it like this, because right now we have two types of weapons, and if you press to pick up the pistol, and if you holster the pistol, as you can see, right now we can imagine a inventory system. I don't know how to make inventory systems yet, but I suppose it's a little bit complicated for my level. But if I press 1, I can so yeah, I think in this case, if I sometimes the characters just the IK glitches as well. So in this case, if I have the pistol holstered, and if I press 1, I can equip the pistol. But now if I press, if I get the rifle and I holster the rifle, if I press 2, I can equip the rifle. But then we're gonna have to check if we have the rifle if you press 2 instead. Otherwise, if I just have the weapon or if I just have the rifle, I can press 1 to pick up the rifle. So we're gonna have to manage that as well. So as you can see right there, we have another bug, which if I press G, it drops the rifle. And just check this. Oh yeah, we're still using the old reference, so that's why. Yeah, I think in games, if you press G, and if you don't have any weapon in your hand, what happens if I press G and I don't have any weapons in my hands, but I have 2 weapons holstered on the character? What happens if you press G in games? I'm not sure. So maybe don't drop any weapon because you're not holding any weapon. I think that's usually what happens, right? Not sure. Yeah, I guess we could make it like this. If the character doesn't have any weapon in the hands, then if you press G to drop a weapon, as the character doesn't have the weapon in his hand, it's not going to drop anything. It's just not going to, the code is just not going to execute. You switch between the equipped weapons. Switch between equipped weapons. If I press G to drop. The last holstered weapon should be equipped. Ah, the last holstered weapon. Yeah, makes sense. The last holstered weapon. Yeah, all right, let's just fix the drop function first so that we can move on to the next systems. So for the G function, as you can see, we're still using the weapon master. Yeah, the G is to drop the weapon. The G is to drop. It's the drop logic we have. As you can see, I can pick up and I can drop with G. As you can see, the code is executing there. But if I press F and then if I press F to pick up the rifle, it's going to holster. And then if I holster the rifle as well, as you can see, if I press G, it's going to, yeah, we have this problem here. But the other thing that we're talking about, which was the holster state, I press Q to holster, and I can also press Q to holster the rifle. So if I press Q to holster again, I think I should be able to get the rifle, not the pistol, right? Yeah. Yeah, it should be the rifle. It should be. Yeah, I don't have that variable last equipped weapon variable, so I'm gonna have to create it. No, I think what I can do to create it would be to promote this variable to a promote this one to a variable and last, and name this to be last weapon tag. And then from here we can decide later in the code what is the last weapon tag. But let me just see. I have to work with this. maybe have the last equipped weapon variable. The last equipped weapon variable. I'm trying to think where I'm going to, how and where I'm going to create that variable and where to place it. Where's the best place to place it? Logvon9 said hello, hello. What's up? How are you doing? G. Logvon9 said first time here. Do you stream often? Right now, yeah, I'm streaming often. Always at this time. Currently doing a devlog of solving bugs and sharing knowledge. How about you? Do you watch streams often? Okay. Yeah, when you when you equip the weapon, I think we can store a variable to, we can have a variable called last equipped weapon, so that we can show that. We can also debug that value to see how what is the last equipped blah. We have a function called debug function. Now we can just copy and paste and make a print string. Yeah, I'm thinking about to create a variable inside the weapon master called last equipped weapon to see if that weapon is the last equipped or not. So I'm just going to go ahead and create that. So in the weapon master, I'm just going to try to, of course, I don't know if this is really going to work, but that's just what I think could work. So last equipped weapon, and then we can try to make it an exclamation mark. And then with the default value is going to be false. Now if you go to the pistol 1H child, that variable is going to be there. So the class defaults, you can see that the last equipped weapon is there. So yeah, I guess we're not going to use this print string, just ignore this. And here in the equip action, after equipping everything, at the end of the code, not at the end, but in here, we're going to set the rifle, set last equipped weapon to true. And then here you're gonna have to figure out what's the Log19 said, actually I watched many of your tutorials, learned so much. Thank you for the content. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think it's basically this. So we're gonna have to also get the pistol. And if we just equipped the rifle, wait, let me actually see how this works again. My brain is burning. I need more brain cells. So to pick up, oops, what? All right. So if I equip the weapon, that's fine. Now if I want to equip the weapon again. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to, this is a little bit complex, but it actually looks simple, but it's very complex to make. So I'm just going to not waste your guys' time. I'm just going to let the code in there, the boolean in there. And we're going to skip this one because it's going to take a lot of time to actually figure out what's the best way to do this. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. And I'm just going to finish the function we've made. So in here, this, as you can see, there's the holster socket. I'm just going to call this, I'm actually going to cut, I'm going to give a lot of, I'm going to receive a lot of errors, but that's okay. I'm just going to remove this parameter, and I'm going to call this attach socket. And as soon as I compile, there you go, boom, as expected, All right. Okay. That's a lot better than I expected to be. So let's go to the arrows, equip. Equip. I'm just going to hold Alt and press on the input to remove it. Compile. I think there's not going to be any problem in here. Just this is the equip socket, and this is the holster weapon macro. Yeah, this is the holster. So you just got to connect the holster socket to the attached socket and we should be good. Now to the other one is just, as this is just holster, then we don't need to plug in the equip socket. Doesn't make sense. So now we just have to make sure that the holster pistol is working. So as soon as I press F and I holster the weapon, it works. I press this and holster, it works. And in this case, the character should be able to pick up equip the rifle instead of the pistol, but we're going to skip this one for now. It's not really important. To use 45 Master said, hey man, I'm using your cover system, so wondering what you thought about using the constraint movement to plane node instead of having to pull. Yeah, that's what I was planning to do, using the constraint instead of the pull, because the pull is not really, as I plug into the Ventic, as this is a pretty old code that I've made. The pull system, it basically works by getting the out of the event tick, you just basically set the actual location to pull against the wall so that the character wouldn't, go away. But that's a very old and unupdated code. And I think the right way to do it would be with using the constraint, which would limit the character's access on a certain axis in order to not be able to move outside the bounds of the wall that you're covering. And then I would use a line trace to detect the wall angle, and then based on that angle normal value, we use it for constraining the character axis and limit it to not go away of the wall. If that makes sense. All right, that looks nice. That looks great. Now let's go and set up the bow. The bow. The bow. The bow. So out of the weapon master, I'm going to create, oh, there's a lot of the bow child is already in here. And the character equip socket is hand R bow. That's fine. Now the character holster socket, we don't have that yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new one. So hand R spine. I think you can make it to the spine. Yeah, how do you usually carry the bow on the holster the bow? Maybe on the spine? No idea. Something like this. Is this how the bow is holstered? I have no idea. Let's take a look at the Last of Us, how it's placed. Yeah, we're not going to worry about much about that right now. Just place the bow in there and then just copy the socket name. And we're going to go back to the bow child. The character holster socket is going to be spine for bow holster. The character equip socket is going to be hand R bow, and that's great. Yeah. Now let's check out what happens when you press F. Okay, it checks if the character can pick up the weapon. It checks if the character is not falling, it's not doing any traversal action. We run a box trace to detect the weapon. If it really detects, then we save the reference of the generic hit actor. We save the weapon location to calculate the reach distance for the blend space in order for the character to be able to pick up the weapon regardless of the height or for the right offset. We run a weapon identifier to identify which kind of weapon we're currently picking up, and then save that reference in order to use throughout the code, so that we can access its skeletal mesh, all the properties that we need. And then from here, we run the attach phase for the piston rifle. And here's the most complex part, because for running such complex code as you can see right here, we're gonna have to, if you don't have an enumerator, as you can see, who said that? Flume. So Flumefire said, "Hi there, sorry I haven't joined your live devlogs as much. Seems so much boot seems so much boot in there. Is there a specific reason why I don't use enumerators yet for the goals you're trying to achieve?" Yeah, so that's the reason why we're not using enumerators, just for testing. But as you can see, everything is working now. So I think it's the best time to start using enumerators now, because this is going to get very complex. As we don't have enumerators and it's not much I think we can delete this part. Just plug it directly in here. And so here it checks if the character has rifle in hands. If it doesn't have the rifle, in hands, it goes to false, and then it checks if the character is alive. So we skip the holster pickup, which basically don't play the holster weapon animation, but we also have to check if the character has the pistol in hands. So I guess I could make it or. So basically checks if the character has any type of weapon in hands. So if it does, we're going to execute the holster weapon macro function, which from here we're going to decide what we're going to do. So I think we're not going to need this extra code in here. It's just unnecessary. We can just keep this part because it's pretty much the same thing. It's pretty much all the same states that we set on the code below. Monster mode said, are you using a variable for the character equip socket and holster socket and plugging the variable into the attach node? Are you using a variable for the character equip socket? Equip socket? No. The equip socket variable is inside the weapon master. So as you can see, we have the character equip socket, and we also have the holster socket. And if you go to each individual child's and all the types of weapons that we have those values set in place as default. So that we can just retrieve those values and put them inside the variables so that we can holster. So that as soon as we execute the holster weapon macro, we run this code. We play the animation, the handgun animation, which is to holster the weapon. And then from here, we check first, before holstering the weapon, we check which type of weapon we have on the character's hand first. And then if it has the pistol, we use the holster socket, which we get from the pistol reference, not the master weapon. And then I just connected here to the output so that we can access outside in here. So this is just a way to, it's pretty much the same thing as just copy and paste this here and then just doing this and then just connecting here. It's just that you can do pretty much the same way. So the character holster socket we connect it to the attach socket, and if you double click on this on the function, as you can see, we have the attach socket in place so that it pretty much fills up the values for equipping or unequipping the weapon. But if you go to the other side, and if you go to here to equip weapon macro, as you can see, we have the same, for equipping, we have the same function, but instead of using the holster socket, we're going to use the equip socket, right? And then we're going to pin the equip socket into the attach socket. so that instead of holstering, we're going to equip. And those values are going to be filled out in here. So we're going to set the actor transform from the attached socket location and the rotation, and the attached socket is going to be also in here for attaching the component. And that's it. All right, so let's just remove some of these codes that are in here. We're going to make it a lot simpler. Right now it looks very complex, but in the future we're going to collapse everything into functions so that they become each code part becomes a single function. So let's say just for running this execution here, you can have like 3 functions separated from each other. One for detecting the weapon, the other one for holstering, the other one for setting the character's state. So we have to pretty much separate those. One function to make the checks, the necessary checks, but this is just optional. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you find it's necessary in order to make a code that it's maintainable, that it's organizable, maintainable and scalable. That's the purpose of everything. But regarding like the last, if you press Q, you can equip the last weapon. I think it makes sense because sometimes you just want to do that. But in other games, I think, yeah, I think it makes sense. In The Last of Us, for example, if you try to aim, if you holster the weapon, maybe if you try to aim again, I think it's going to equip. It's a very good information to know which weapon was last holstered, which one was the last weapon holstered. So I think it's a very important information to have as well. So as you can see, you can just delete all of this code in here. And for now, I think we can create a enumerator for handling those values in here. So as you can see, if I didn't have an enumerator before, I would have to create every single boolean for each, type of weapon, which is not scalable. It's much easier to just create a value in the enumerator, but we're gonna have to have different enumerators or just a single boolean to check if the current weapon is in hands, or maybe we could also do that in the weapon master. But we're gonna have to check it out later. So if I try to pick up the bow right now, as you can see, it doesn't pass through the separate references collapse graph. I'm just going to make this graph a little bit black. Because we don't have that reference in here. So what I'm gonna do is just duplicate the weapon rifle, and then set the BP weapon search for the BP bolt child and select it as an object reference. And we're going to just set the reference to be the weapon master. And I think we can just, you don't need to do this for every single, just don't need to duplicate this. Wait. Oh, okay, so it cannot be it should be the master as the the variable type. So I'm just going to change the variable type and it should be there. Oops, it's lagging a little bit. Okay, compile, save. All right, so what we're doing here is just separate the references to basically know which one is which. So have each reference separated to know which one is which weapon we're dealing with, so that we can reference the right weapons. So here we have the reference of the pistol, the rifle, and the bow. And now if you press on play, let's see if that's gonna, yeah, we're missing just the variable in here. I think that's going to pass through. So now when you try to pick up the rifle, as you can see, now the character is on the loop state. I'm not sure why. Probably because the animation is looping through this. Because this boolean is not set to be false for some reason in the code, so we're gonna have to find out what is going on. And we also don't have the bow value in there, so probably it's going to be false, as you can see right there. And it has to be true. So let me just bypass this to see if it's going to work. So I'm going to press on play, and it's not going to be completed because maybe we don't have the boolean. It doesn't pass through here because you also have another boolean to consider, which is the whole string state. We're just going to bypass that as well, just to see if the character can be able to pick up the bow. Not yet. I'll notify begin doesn't run. As you can see right here, it doesn't have the references yet. We're gonna have to create the references. So in here, instead of just I think there's another better way to do this. And we can also collapse this everything to a function to make this a single function. I think this is going to make the code a lot more organizable. So I'm just going to select all this and right click and collapse to function. And this function is going to be called trace for weapon. All right. Epic Games at Solvi. A long time said, "Are you Anglo-Saxon?" Angles. What? No, I'm not. Kevin said, "I just started watching your mental tutorial. You're the man." I appreciate it. Epic Games said, "No, he's Brazilian." Yeah, I'm Brazilian. My name is Fabiano. That's why my English is not perfect, but we're still improving on it. So we're trying to improve my English. Sometimes I forget the words. Kevin said, "In my experience, most devs suck at teaching. They know their stuff, but they are terrible at this construction and the fundamentals on why stuff is built a certain way. Thanks for being a great teacher." Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. I mean, I try my best to teach, but it's overall it's very complex to explain. So I think the best way to teach is just to use simple language, especially for someone who's a beginner. So I don't know if I could give an example. But I think it's just use simple language and explain node by node. Explain, maybe over explain a little bit. Maybe it's not the ideal, but detail everything that could maybe explain everything. in more detail. So instead of saying that this is just a variable that says the block movement input, you can say this is a variable that we use for before playing the foot correction animation to correct the foot. We block the player. We block the player input, which means which means that the player, which is yourself, is not going to be able to press any key to move the character while this variable is true. You know, something like this, I don't know. So this is going to be the holster weapon. Holster. Well, I'm gonna try to do something here. I'm not sure if that's going to work, but instead of storing variables to check if the character to check if the character actually currently has the pistol in his hands for every single weapon, we can try to just create one single variable to check if that current weapon, that specific weapon, is in the character's hand, other than just creating the booleans one by one, which is going to fill up the graph and it's going to not be scalable as much. Then we're going to try to see that, test it out to see if it's going to work. So we could try to do something like weapon is holstered, and then the other one is going to be weapon is equipped. So the difference between holstered is that the character, the weapon is holstered, is that it's on the back of the character, or maybe it's on the thigh of the character. So that when you press Q, we can holster the weapon, so that we're going to put the weapon that is already on the hands of the character to the holster, to the equip location, to the holster location of the character, which is going to be attached to the character's body. And on hands is just simple, you know, when you pick up the weapon for the first time, the weapon is going to be on your hands. If you drop it and pick up another rifle, and then the rifle is now on the character's hand. We still have to fix that IK issue, it's very annoying, but we're gonna have to find in the future versions, we're going to have the IK working as well, which is going to make it to be perfect. Kevin said the best way I learn is understanding the problem that is being solved. The problem that is being solved, yeah, that's a very good This is a very good way to learn. Because if you're doing something, you're just basically solving a problem, right? And or implementing a function. And in the process of implementing a function, we could have problems, and then we can explain how those problems can be solved by, implementing. In the process of implementing something, we can add those types of codes that are going to prevent bugs and prevent problems, and explain why it happens and why we should do things. I think it's very good. Kevin said most devs will tell you that a car runs because you press the gas pedal. You actually explain why the gas pedal exists. Yeah, that's a very good note. That's a very good detail to point out. URB said, "Hey mate, I'm really happy to find you live. I have a question. Please help me. Here, what I'm trying to find out, I want to use a bolt action rifle, which require right hand to pull bolt. But if I use right hand, socket can't do bolt pull. What is the best way for it?" Yeah, it really depends. I don't know what there is in your code. If you're following the live, maybe I can help you, but there could be many things and I cannot really tell. I can tell the things that you should look for, but probably there is a percentage of chance that you could be able to fix it just by my tips, but my tip would be just, I don't know, just debug everything. Try to see why you cannot do the bolt pull. What kind of code it allows you to do the bolt pull, and try to figure out and debug the values and print the strings, print out the values that are related to that action, to the bolt pull, and then try to print the strings, print the same values when you cannot do the bolt pull. I think that's the best way to go and debug to see which values are not working. And the main thing is that you find which value and which, maybe it's a variable type, a float that has a different value, or maybe it's a boolean that is set to be false instead of true. So you need to really find out yourself which value is not being set to the correct value. And then find out why it is not being set as for the correct value. Chris, what game are you making? Right now, I'm not making any game. I'm just trying to implement the ALS system, which is this one right over here. So we're just trying to implement the we already implemented the layering system into the GASP project. The layer blending is this one right here. We've already implemented all of that, which basically allows the character to have upper body animations, such as this one right here. And now what we're trying to do is just make the character to be able to pick up weapons, holster, aim. Probably going to also make we're also going to make the shooting ability, so that we're going to make the character shoot bullets, as I've done for the last tutorial. But right now we're just organizing things, making this code maintainable and scalable, and collapsing them to functions so that you can we don't have this mess right here. But right now we're just making the pickup, holster, and drop functions, and making the code scalable so that we can easily add multiple weapons to it. Right now we have only the pistol, the rifle, and the bow. I think the next weapon we could add is, it could be a knife or maybe the punch, the punch overlay as well. The ability to punch things, punch enemies. I'm planning to also add a enemy, work with enemies, and other things. But it's basically whatever you guys request, I'm going to make and implement into this project right here. But the main reason, the main thing right now is to just make a base so that everybody can work on it. Everybody can use this project to to fill their needs. To fit their needs, not to fill. Do you know, Chris said, do you know modeling and animation or just coding? I only do the coding part, the locomotion, and the core logic, pick up, drop, but I mostly do locomotion. Character locomotion. I think they call it as a technical gameplay designer. I think that's the best way to explain what I do, to explain my role. Should I make my combat with motion matching or GASP? I think those are the same thing. Motion matching and GASP are the same. Yeah, the motion matching. Oh, do you mean? Because in GASP you can choose to have the motion matching ability, the motion matching system, or use the states, which also works great. But I think you should build on top of whatever you find the best. There's not really the right system, I guess. But if you're already used with motion matching, then I would suggest with motion matching. Gameplay ability system. GASP animation sample. Gameplay ability system. Which one is this? Gameplay ability system. Is this a... this one? The value of the ancient sample. Let me know. Yes. I think GASP system, people are using it more, so I think you should go with the GASP system, game animation sample. But it's up to you. If you have bugs with, and you cannot figure out what it is with the game ability system, you can go to the game animation sample or motion matching. Yeah, so I guess I'm going to go now. Thank you guys very much for the support and feedback. In the next live stream, we're going to finish the implementation of the bowl system and organize these booleans as well. So we're going to have less booleans. Yeah, these booleans also, they don't need to be in here. So in the next tutorial, we're going to have to create a secondary, a boolean or a secondary enumerator, or maybe a reference, so that we can know which weapon we currently have, which weapon we had in the past, which weapon we're dropping. We need to make sure all those values are in place, so that we don't have any bugs, and the code is pretty much controllable on what you want to do. Are not using tags for the bow and handgun. Using tags like for bow and handgun. I'm using the weapon tag from the enumerator inside the weapon master. As you can see right here, we have the weapon tag. And instead of using tags, I'm using a enumerator to check which kind of weapon we have, we're going to be able to pick up. And basically as a identificator to just basically define which weapon is which. So inside that enumerator, we have all the types of weapons currently, as I've added here. So we have the pistol, rifle, and bow. And I'm just using that right now. Oops. So as you can see on the weapon identifier, we pretty much identify which weapon we're going to. And here, separate references. So here on the separate references, we separate each reference, so that based on the weapon tag, we promote this to a variable. We promote separate references for each one, so that we don't really mess up in here. I think for simplicity, we could add just one single weapon for the character to be able to pick up, because if you try to add multiple weapons like this one, I think the code is going to be a little bit glitchy. So if you try to pick up and drop, pick up this one and drop this one, but pick up this one, pick up this one, and then pick up this one again, as you can see, the code is going to be very confusing, and we're going to also have errors. So maybe only one pistol is allowed to have in the world. We can set that rule, because it really depends on pretty much what game are you trying to make. For example, in the Last of Us 2, as I'm basing off my code on that game, in that game we don't have, you know, multiple pistol ability to pick up multiple pistols. So if you have a pistol already in the character's hand in the world, and if you pick it up, you cannot be able to pick up another pistol of the same type of the weapon, you know. Are you planning to upload this file, this project? Yes, for the Patreon members. I think I'm gonna make it like this. The devlogs from 0 to 10 are free. Everyone can access it. The devlogs from 10 to 20 are going to be for the standard members, and the 20 to 30 are going to be for the premium members. But when I go to the devlog 30, I'm going to make the devlogs from 10 to 20 for free, so that it's better balanced, and it makes sense for my supporters to, you know, get those project files, and I think it makes sense for them to to be able to get it. Otherwise, I think there should be no reason to support. All right, I guess that's going to be pretty much it.